Welcome to Behind the Emerald Veil podcast with Ali and Mandy from Soul Star Energy Collective. We are intuitives, we are healers, and we are spiritual teachers here to help empower others to access their intuitive gifts. So welcome. After we give it through the formality.
Now we can be ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. After we're just like, welcome to the announcements. So today we are going to be talking about some of the
I'm waiting. Do you know?
Are waiting. Yes, we are going to talk about some of the obstacles for developing your intuition, right?
Well, yeah, some of the things that hold us back from
yes.
Even moving forward to
even obstacles.
Well, yeah, they're obstacles.
Okay.
Maybe we'll put obstacles in the title.
Maybe.
We haven't titled it yet.
No, we haven't. But before we do that, Mandy's got a little story to share that you guys are gonna love. She's so brave.
It's a fun story. It's I feel a little bit silly. Like, this is the kind of story that you're telling, say Ali and I were just talking about this, and then we would be like, oh my God, if anybody heard me talking about this, they would think I was crazy. But I've already shared it.
Safe space.
Yeah, right. But I've already shared it with people who aren't so much in this realm. So, and I have had to preface, this is going to sound crazy, but it was received really, really well. So
is it?
Yeah, it was.
You know what? Okay, now I can hear all your mic stuff. What you doing?
I did touch I touched something.
We started recording, and then it was like you could hear my desk. Like, what the hell? These mics either work super good or they pick up on everything.
They're almost like a prop at this point.
It totally is. I'm like, geez. What was I gonna say? Oh, you know what your story reminds me of?
What?
Beauty and the Beast.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. You see why?
No, but you'll have to share after.
Okay.
Maybe I'll see it as I'm talking.
Okay.
Okay. So as you guys all know, Ali and I read energy, and we teach people how to read energy. And then you should also know, if you don't, this is why we were here. But if you do, then this is just a reminder. Everything has an energy, right? So we have an energy, we have a vibe, our house has an energy, everything has a vibe, everything has an energy. You can read the energy of literally anything. So you can read the energy of an animal, a plant, a tree, a house, a business, yourself, your friends, your family. You can even read the energy, the collective energy of, like, let's say a sports team or a classroom or a workplace, right? So you can read the energy of anything and everything. So the story is, my daughter plays competitive fastball. So she's on a team that is, developing for their age, and they're doing really well, and they're having a lot of fun, and they travel a lot. And so my daughter and her good friend have been struggling a little bit with hitting, like with their bats. So every time they go up to bat, they are either striking out, or they're pop flying, or whatever. It's just they're not connecting, and they're not like killing the ball to the outfield the way that they normally would. So every player goes through a little slump like this, right? Once in a while. So the family that the other girl on the team, they know what I do for work and stuff like that, and they're very into it. And I have done some energy work for her in the past. So this time they asked me to do some energy work for her again, because she's been struggling a little bit with her bats and stuff. And I was like, okay, yeah, no problem. And I said, while I'm in there, I'm going to do Aubrey as well, because she's also been struggling. So when I was in the energy, I do like an energy cleanse on them, and I clear their energy, and I remove, because I could see like there was limiting beliefs in their mind, and I was clearing the clutter, and there was stuff in their aura that I needed to clear away just from like the school days and stuff like that. So they were feeling a little bit heavy. So I did a little bit of an energy cleanse and just cleared it for them. But what I felt called to do while I was doing that was to read the energy of their bat. Because I was like in there, and I was like, oh, I could read the energy of their bat and see what's up. So I pulled for the energy of Aubrey's bat, And it took a little while to connect to it because, it's a freaking bat. And this is where it sounds crazy, but I did. So I was connecting to the energy of the bat, and the energy felt like it was sleeping. Like this bat was like asleep. And I was like, I had to knock on it and I was like, hello, are you there? And then the bat slowly woke up and it was like, oh yeah, like, and then it was like almost like it was could vaguely remember what its job was to do. Like, oh yeah, I kind of remember hitting balls into the outfield. Like I kind of remembered that that's what my job is. And then I was like, "Oh my God, like wake up. This is your job. Do your job." And it was like, "Oh yeah, okay." And so it kind of like woke the bat up a little bit. And then I was talking to Aubrey about it and I was like, "Okay, Aubrey, you need to wake your bat up every time you go up to hit." I'm like, "Give it a name. So name your bat." And then like literally if you don't feel so dumb, like knock on it or do something in the batter's box where you're like tapping your feet or something. So you're like, okay, we're connected, like wake up. You're
Give
here
it a
to do
big
a job.
smack.
Give it a big
A little
smack.
smack across the
So,
bat's face.
so this was like this weird, right? But this is what I was receiving.
Yeah.
So it was pretty funny for Aubrey to understand that her bat was asleep because it made complete sense. Like her bat it was just not doing its job. So now her bat works. Like she's been hitting and she's been connecting and it's been consistent. So it's been amazing to watch this transition there. And now she feels even a little bit more connected to her bat in a sense where she's given it a name and it's got a little bit of a personality. It's a little bit sleepy and like, okay, let's get up here. But then the energy of the other girl's bat. So she had two bats that she uses and she was going back and forth between both bats, but neither of them were really working. So the first bat I read, the energy felt really unreliable. And it was like, yeah, I can do this, but she needs to make sure that she hits the ball like right here. And it was like a very specific spot on the bat where it needed to connect in order for the bat to like really send it into the outfield. And I was like, well, that's not really like that. You never know where you're going to hit it. Like she can't just like decide this is where. So I was kind of like talking to the bat and it's like, well, no, I know, but this is where she needs to hit it in order for it to work. And I was like, okay, so unreliable, carry on to the next bat. And then so it's connecting to the next bat. And this bat is like a really popular bat. Like it's the newest bat on the market. It's called the Ghost. It's a very good bat. Like all the softball players are using it. And so I connected to this bat and it was really arrogant. And it was like, yeah, I could do it if I wanted to, but sometimes I don't feel like it. And I was like, well, that's not really how it works. I'm like, this is your job and she needs you to do your job. And it's like, well, yeah, but I could do my job and I could do it really well, but whatever. And I was like, that is weird. So then I was like, okay, listen up, bat. I was like, you have a really short career here. You're like maybe a season, maybe half a season. Like you had a short career here. I said, so do you, if she's a star, then you're a star. So if you help her be a star, then you're going to be a star. And then I could sense the energy the bat was like receiving that, like soaking that knowledge in, like that insight. And then I was like, so you have two choices here. You could be arrogant if you want to and probably end up in the trash or in some other kid's bag like that plays learn to play, or you could do a really good job and end up on the wall when you're done. And it was like, ooh, I want that. That's what I want. And I was like, okay. So then this is what I had talked to about this bat. So then I was telling this girl, like in her family, the story, and they were just loving it. It was like, oh my God, this is so cool. This is so funny. And so she like now has these relationships with her bats, right? So over the weekend, we were at another tournament and the one unreliable bat actually broke. It like cracked. So it's unreliable
Garbage.
And it's gone. And then this other bat, the one that was arrogant, they finally connected because this bat was also like, well, I can do my job. I want to do my job. Like it was feeling like ready to do his job, but now she has to do her job too. And she needs to actually connect. So it was like a partnership in a sense. So finally this weekend it clicked and she was friggin' soaring those balls into the outfield, like consistently through the weekend. So it was pretty cool to experience and pretty cool to see and pretty like fun for the kids to be like, oh, my bat is arrogant or my bat is sleepy or my bat is unreliable. You know what I mean? Like just kind of to get to know and to like connect with something that you rely on to help you do what you love to do. So it was pretty funny.
Absolutely. Well, we all kind of like connect to our, cars or, all
Yeah,
these funny things. Like my mom, names every car and they have their own personality.
they do. They truly
Yeah.
do.
So it's like doing it instinctively and realizing like, actually, that is a thing, mom. You are actually connecting to that.
Yes.
um, I just realized because remember I was like trying to remember if I have any stories because again, it becomes so part of your
Mhm.
day, you don't even think about it. But so I had an incident. We went camping this weekend, and this isn't okay. This isn't as fun as Mandy's. This is more darker.
It's more, but this is the contrast in how we use our gifts,
That's true. That's true.
right?
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Because I was like, oh man, no, I'm gonna come in and be like, mwah, mwah. But okay, but first, before that, as my brain goes, Beauty and the Beast.
Oh yeah.
It's because all of the, things in the house have personalities and talk, like
Oh
the broomstick,
yes.
so when I think of the bat, I'm thinking of like coming to life and
Gaston.
being like, you know.
Totally. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, that makes complete. Okay, I get it now.
Yeah,
I get
I
it.
get it. Wow, that took a lot of time.
Thanks.
Uh, so okay, so yeah, on the weekend we were up island and we were heading to a what is it, secondhand store. My mom loves secondhand stores all the time, and I was like, sure, whatever, I'll go. So when we're walking in, my mom had noticed looked like a group of homeless people, and looked like maybe they were packing up to go, whatever, like that's common. And but then when my sister arrived, she kind of like came in and then stepped back out, and she was like, I think that person needs help. And
Mm.
so she called out, and then all of a sudden I see her just run to her car. So I'm like, what the hell? And so like my mom goes out and we can see, I guess the person was ODing.
Oh
And
no.
so then she ran in and asked the store if they had like the pens.
Those pens, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
What's it
those,
called?
what is it called?
Is it,
I don't,
oh,
it's not a
narcs.
narc pen,
Yeah.
narc needle, narc, I don't know, narc thing, narc kit.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, we have these here in BC. I don't know if it's even are available in the rest of Canada or even the
I have
world,
no
but like
idea. I didn't even know
it's
it was like something that you can like people just had. Like this
yeah.
was all new to me. And the guy hands it over to my mom, and I'm like, what? And so, my mom goes out, my sister, we start walking towards, and it's funny because my instinct was, oh God, I can't get close. I can't see. Like it was like it was like it was overwhelming
Hmm.
me, that I was like, I don't know if I can walk up to this scene and
Hmm.
see whatever I'm going to see. But then I was like, well, I'm not going to just let my 4-year-old mom walk over there and my sister running from her car because she was going to get her narc kit. And so, I went over and I'm like standing there, and it was so crazy because like I did feel like this like anxiety, this rush of like, oh my God, this is overwhelming my system, because
Hmm.
obviously the energy around was
Dense.
very dense. And so, you had about 5 people, one person who was overdosed, and then these other people that were homeless in part, you could tell they were on drugs as well, and
Hmm.
but they were all kind of like coming together and helping their friend. So when we talk about energy, like the energy was also kind of like filtered with this sense of detachment from the drug use that
Hmm.
was everybody had. And so I kind of felt like I went into this, like, I kind of like separated from, detached from the scenario. And it was
Mm.
like I went and became, like, I guess you could, if you were looking from the outside, it would look like I was not being very empathetic. It wasn't even that. It was, I don't know. It was like I needed to detach so I didn't feel it, to
Yeah.
become kind of like numb to what was happening.
Hmm.
And then I started to, you know, mentally put white light and healing energy over the group
Mhm.
of people to the person. And it was just kind of like, I wasn't even thinking at this point. Cause now when I look back, I'm like, what just happened here? And I couldn't believe how kind of stoic I became in that
Right.
sense. And that's where I was like, ooh, I completely like, it's like I detached from my body. I detached from the feelings of it
Mm.
so that I could be present to kind of be
Channel
aware
the
of.
healing energy to them.
Yeah, but it was so unconscious. Like it wasn't like
Right.
I was like, ooh, I need to do this or whatever. It was like it just became like a separate. It was like my soul was standing outside watching, but I wasn't really fully anchored in mentally.
Hmm.
Because I think my human would have been very bothered and upset by it all. And, even to the point like my mom at one point was like going down and grabbing like newspapers, and I don't even know why, but I was like, don't touch anything. Like I just kind of turned to her and I was like, oh, like usually I don't say, but I'm like, it was like I can think back now and I noticed how one of the girls that was trying to wake up this gentleman put gloves on. And
Mm.
it was just all these things were just registering, but so slow motion where I was like, oh,
Interesting.
gloves on. Well, that's a good, what is she touching that newspaper? Don't touch the newspaper, mom. Like, let's not clean up around
Hmm.
here, like type of thing. But, it was one of those situations where it's like, yeah, you can use um, your abilities to like help in that scenario. But what I also loved witnessing was the humanity, like, everybody coming forward. Like this one girl who was very drugged up, I could tell because she could barely stand,
Hmm.
but she had gone running and had like 3 narc kits. And so she came back. So she's barely cohesive, but it was like instinctually, she knew she needed to go get this to help this person. And then you start to see other people outside of this group coming in to help. And I was like, it just warmed my heart of like
Mm.
seeing the humanity amongst people and, from very different walks of life, whether
Yeah.
you part of the group that was doing drugs or whether you were outside of that, like the amount of
Hmm.
people that came together to help somebody, it
Right.
was just so like warming and beautiful and all of that.
Aw, I love
Yeah.
that.
So I was like, oh my goodness. And it's one of those things though, then you sit there and you're like, wow, what has gotten to this person's life that they will risk this over and over and over to be in that
Hmm.
state. And that part, then afterwards I then get all emotional. But yeah.
Yes, that's the hard part to that's the hard part to
Yeah,
reflect on. And then also even knowing, because we know like that's contracted for that soul to experience, but
absolutely.
depending on the free will decisions that this person made, because we all create our own reality. So based on the decisions and the situation this person was in and the
Hmm.
decisions that they made, it put them on that path to experience that contract or that timeline.
Yeah.
So it's still really hard to experience, to watch, to
Yeah. And
see
just
all the
to
things.
know the amount of pain I think somebody would have to be in to
Yeah.
want to put themselves in that situation. So then, then the empath afterwards comes in and you're
Mm.
like, oh my. And then I'm like, okay, well, we're not going to connect to all of that. Like,
No,
you did
no,
your
yeah.
act of service.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
goodness gracious. Oh geez.
Aw. Okay,
So
well,
that was like, yeah, there you go. I
you did
totally
bring that down. You did. Just kidding.
no, I didn't.
It's I love the white light though, because I definitely have been in situations too where just in the day out and
Mhm.
about where I feel like I need to just send white light and channel
Yeah,
that energy and hold the space energetically for people. And that's just something small we can do. And I think we forget how impactful that can be, especially when you feel like you're um helpless in certain situations. For example, helping, people who are experiencing the war right now. Do you know
yep,
what I mean?
yep.
As people who know how to read energy and work with energy, or anybody who does, we can still help that experience, that situation by channeling and sending healing light and doing healing work for the people in that situation, for that country, for for the whole thing. And that is something that we do, but it's not something that, like, it doesn't look like we're helping, but that's how we can help. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And it's one of those things where you have to go into faith and trust that, because it's not something physical that you're going to see. It's not something you're going to be validated for. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing, I think a big part of, connecting to energy and reading energy and your intuition. It's really trusting that, what you're doing is impactful without having to have the validation, and that's the
Yes.
hardest part of it. But really going into that trust and faith that, okay, if I'm sending this white light, like, I don't need to hear from whoever I'm sending it to, like, because I bet people would be like, well, did he make it? I don't need to,
Mm-hmm.
hear whatever. All I know is, like, if I sent it, and however that was meant to be used or received would be
Mm-hmm.
used and received. And, having that understanding that if, that person's soul contract was that this was their end, that's going to happen no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
in that sense. Like, last week my mom had called me, and she was upset. One of her friends had fallen off a horse and was unconscious in the hospital, and she was just really shaken.
Mm-hmm.
And I was driving downtown to go to work, and so I got off, and I just, instantly was like, you know what, I can at least send white healing light. But I also knew that if that was her soul contract to
Mm-hmm.
pass from that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not going in to change anything. I'm just sending it to, bring peace, bring, if it's not there, to maybe ease some of the
Yeah.
suffering,
Yeah.
maybe help the family members or whatever. But again, at the end of the day, what's meant to happen is going to happen. We're not going to be able to influence that
Yeah.
in that sense,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's interesting to, you know
Yeah. It's
rely on
just
that.
I don't know, a beautiful tool and a beautiful skill to be able to help those in need without
Mm-hmm.
the traditional help. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, well, I'm not a registered nurse, so I can't help you, but
Yeah.
I am a healer and I can channel energy to help you in a different way.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And I think, that kind of leads into, like, partly the topic
Yes, it
that we're going
does.
into today, because, I think you get to a state of, you've done enough energy healings that you do get feedback,
Yeah.
and you do get validated, that now you're able to be in trust that if you're sending it, it's doing what it needs to do, and you don't need to know the outcome or
Yeah.
have feedback, because you've done it enough where you have received feedback to trust
Hmm.
it.
And I think what happens when you do that, so when you're practicing doing the energy work, what you start to notice is the very subtle shift in vibration in your own frequency when you're channeling that energy or when you're working with that energy versus when you're not. So there's a difference between just setting an intention to send white light and then the end channeling that energy and sending the white light through healing. So there's
Yeah,
a very subtle difference in the frequency. And as you practice it and as you do it more often, you begin to notice those differences. So then when you are doing it, there is that trust, that just that deep knowing, that deep sense of knowing that it's working and that you're doing something to help.
absolutely. For sure.
Hmm.
For sure. Yeah. So it's pretty neat what you can do. And I think we tend to forget, or it just becomes part of you just don't even think about it.
I
And
know.
and then you're like, wait a minute, man, I use that a lot more than I thought.
I know. I use it all the time to
All the
help
time, but
people.
really subconsciously, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
constantly like that,
Yeah.
even if I'm just sitting there going, like, on the weekend, I think that's probably what I was telling the students. Because we were like, what were you telling the students the other day? I'm like, being in a trailer, it was raining, and the energies was high in the galactics.
It was,
And
yeah.
I could feel like this, like, I just felt overwhelmed. I think I was like feeling, what is it when you're
Hmm.
overstimulated, but with energy? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's
And
no reason, no like reason for you to feel overstimulated. You were
no,
camping, you're outside, you were with your family.
yes,
Nothing out of the ordinary was happening. It's not like you were at a 5-year-old birthday party and all the kids were
yeah,
screaming, or you were in a very busy mall or anything.
concerts, yeah, yeah,
It was not a reason for you to be overstimulated.
overstimulated at all. And I was sitting in the trailer. There's only me, my two kids, and my mom. And it was like, I feel it. I feel my energy going. It was just like this vibrating, and everything became super loud. You've talked about this. I'm
Yeah.
like, my mom humming became super loud. I kept like in my head being like, stop it, Allison, just let it, like, whatever, just let it go. And then, my son over here making a elastic ball, it got real big. Real big. But every time he would like just pick it up and drop it a little bit on the table, it'd be like vibrate, like,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just getting louder and louder in my head. And I'm like, holy crap. I need to like anchor my energy down. So I instantly went in and I was like, okay, I'm going to start to ground myself. I am going to clear my energy, wrap myself in a bubble, because I was like, this is like too much. And it was pissing rain outside. So it's not like I could just go outside and be like, get away from it. I was just, but it's
Yeah.
interesting when you become so attuned to your energy
Mm-hmm.
that you are able to notice these nuances, or even understand why it's happening, instead of
Yes.
me just being like, can you stop with that and you stop with this, when they're like, whoa,
Yeah.
we weren't doing anything. I was able to recognize that I was being overstimulated, that the energies were high, and it had nothing to do with them.
Yeah, there was like like 4 X-class major flares that day. It was like raining solar flares. And I think you text me even, you're like, oh my God, I'm struggling. And then I was like, well, did you see the flares today? You're like, I don't have time for this. I'm stuck in a trailer with my family. I was like, I'm sorry.
I'm like, I'm so uncomfortable. And I've like had the migraine the day before, and I'm just
Yes.
like, and
Yeah.
I'm like just wanting to enjoy myself, right? We had
Yeah.
this little family getaway, and I'm trying not to like combust,
Yeah.
and that's like not my natural nature. So when I start to feel this way, I'm like, I hate it, because that's not what I'm naturally like. And then I'm like, oh my God, now I feel like I did in my head, I felt like I just wanted to scream.
Yeah. I've definitely been there lots of times.
It's
Okay.
hard. It's
Yeah.
hard.
We should probably get into our topic because I feel like we've been
Yeah.
talking for 30 minutes of just
Yeah, we
stories.
have. Well, sometimes that's
It
fun.
is fun. It is
Yeah.
fun. Okay,
Okay.
we're going to talk a little bit about things that hold us back from intuitive development. And I feel like there's 2 levels here. Things that hold us back from even moving into intuitive development,
Mm,
and then things that hold us back while we're developing our intuition.
yeah,
Because there's
for
two
sure.
different things, but they're the same in a sense,
Yeah.
right? So fear, for example, is something that holds us back in both areas, but it just shows up differently. So if you're somebody who, you know, somebody who wants or who is interested in development or intuition or whatever, fear of even taking that step forward to develop your intuition, I think is really loud for a lot of people. And I experienced this, and I think Ali, you'd experienced this, but it was the fear. Well, there's so many different types of fears, but for me specifically, it was the fear of not believing that I could do it.
Mm,
Not the fear of not believing. Sorry, I held I guess, a limiting belief that I wasn't somebody that would be able to open up, that I had psychic gifts, that I could open up and do anything. And I didn't know, but I didn't feel like it was something that I could do. So it took me a long time to reach out to my first mentor. I think I was like quietly developing or learning and reading and all the things for, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe, before I finally reached out to somebody. But it also took me that amount of time to feel comfortable to be like, okay, I'm ready for the next step.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's like taking that next step. There's a financial commitment to
Yes.
that. So you do have to have some belief that you can do it. And I think the disbelief comes from the perception of what that certain people are psychic and certain people are that certain people are gifted, and other people are not. And so that before kind of walking down this road, we grew up that way. You had the Sylvia Brown, you had these people that they were gifted,
Yeah.
and they were special. They had these gifts that we don't possess. And so it's, disengaging from that narrative to being like, are you serious? What do you mean? Like, everybody has access? No way. And like, and I would put them up on pedestals. Like, any psychic I'd gone to see, like, I was just like, wow, you're so cool. I wish I could do what you do.
Yeah. I
Oh,
loved going to psychics or watching them on, like, anytime Oprah had them on, if you remember
right?
Oprah. Or Sally Jesse Raphael.
Oh my God, now you're dating yourself. But yes, Sally Jesse Raphael with the blonde bob. Wasn't it curly
And
hair?
the
Is that
red
her?
glasses.
No, she didn't have curly hair. Did she have
She had
blonde?
blonde hair and red glasses. That was her
Yeah,
signature.
yeah, but short blonde hair, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's gonna bug me. Yeah, and so I think, like, first off, it's dismantling that to realizing, like, okay, it's not specific to anybody, and believing it, because you're not going to go and spend money. Like, I wouldn't go to somebody and be like, I want to do what you do, if I didn't was able to, dismantle that old
Yeah.
belief system within myself.
I think there's also a misconception in, I guess, the intensity of what it is that we can do. So, like, when you just said that, I want to do what you do, it was like, you're right. Like, they're putting that person on this pedestal. Like, they have like this access to God where nobody else could have access to that. But there's no hierarchy here. Like, the only people that created hierarchy is like the systems and the people on this planet, but energetically, everybody's equal. There is no
Yes.
hierarchy on the other side. Everybody is equal. Everybody's vibration is just as beautiful and is just as vibrant and full of love. Everybody has this within them that they can do. So, like, I found remembering that made it easier for me to show up and be more vulnerable. Because I remember one of our teachers asked me to do a reading for them. And I very much could have been like, holy shit, no way. There's no way. But
Yeah.
I stepped into the energy of being like, okay, like, I can do it because they're no better than me. Do you know what I
No.
mean? Like, I'm just as, maybe not as tenured or as experienced, but it didn't mean I have access to this. I have this gift, and I'm just going to share what it is that I received. That's all I can do.
Yeah,
Right.
that's all you can do,
So when you're looking at teachers and mentors to work with, remembering that you're just as equal as they are, and they are just unlocking things that you already have within you that you already know.
They've just gone down the path
They're just a
before
little
you.
further. Yeah.
Yeah, down the path. So they're able to, like, turn around and be like, oh, hey, here's a
Yeah.
tip. Here's a tip. Let's do this and this and this.
And that path is like one linear, like, it's equal. It's not like they're up on this path. They're on the same path.
Yeah, they're just 10 steps ahead,
Yeah.
but you're going along there too. And it's like with anything, like with any student, whether it's traditional learning, you go into a classroom, you're going to have some people that pick things up faster, and you're going to have some people that it takes a bit longer. It's just how we process. And but it doesn't mean they're better or anything like that. It's all different. And even in the sense, like, within this development journey that, we've experienced, and as students ourselves, and then also teaching people, everybody's like, so even though everybody has access to their intuition, everybody is using their intuition, whether you're aware of it or not.
Yeah.
It is something that you are using and you are receiving every day, whether you're aware of it or not. And the purpose is that if you want to become aware of it, so you can recognize it more and be able to call it out for what it is, then that's when you start to learn how these small nuances kind of like happen. But everybody's going to develop and have their strengths in different areas, because that's where they're meant to. So you may have somebody who physically sees spirits with their eye, like physically can look over at that room and be like, there's, Joe Blow sitting there. I can see it with my physical eyes, blah, 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 blah. And then you're going to have some people that are like, no, I don't see, I'm an intuitive too. I don't see it with my physical eyes at all, where maybe they're more, can feel things or close their eyes and within their mind's eye be able to kind of connect to maybe the light, the energy, but not maybe the physical.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's going to kind of have their strengths and whatever, and it doesn't make any one person less than. It just means that that is their journey and that's their purpose,
Mm-hmm.
moving forward. There's things that you and I are like, oh man, I wish I could do this, or I'd love to do this, but we sometimes will have to come back and be like, but what's my purpose? So am I
Mm-hmm.
diluting myself by, just being a curious Nelly and wanting to learn all the things, or is my purpose what my soul came here to do? Can I master that? Can I become the expert in that? Because that's what my soul's here meant to do,
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. So there's so much variance
Yeah,
to it.
and you'll be called to the different areas that you are meant to work in. For example, there's so many astrologers out there who have developed their intuition through understanding astrology, and then people with human design, but also people who like literally channel, galactic beings and let them speak through them. Like there's so many different ways to access this information in this energy, but it's all the same energy that we're accessing.
It's just
Um,
different ways,
yeah, and
different formats.
everybody can develop that, whether it just depends on the route that you're feeling called to do it. For us, it was reading energy. And because we learned how to understand and read energy, we were able to apply that to the Akashic records and apply that to healings. And now we apply it more so in our daily life. For example, reading a baseball bat. But you can incorporate that skill into anything that you are doing, right? But it's also the same with astrology. Like if you're wanting to understand your soul blueprint or your kids or whatever, like there's just so many beautiful things to do. But I,
Well, in
go ahead.
channeling, for instance, like that was something I learned, that there's not just one way of doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
there's many different ways of channeling. You can channel and literally have a spirit take over your body, and your conscious mind is out of there. Or you are like, nope, nobody's coming in here. You can like, channel it a different way, or my conscious mind's going to be aware the whole time. Like even that, like it comes down to, there's so many different levels of doing things. So like if you see one channel versus another channel, it's like, oh well, they're right and they're wrong because they're
Mm-hmm.
doing it this way. And it's like, no, 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 you get to choose where
Mm-hmm.
how you want to do it and what
Yeah.
you're comfortable with.
And I like that you brought up the channeling part and mentioning that there's different ways to do it, because we were both under the impression that to channel is when you allow a spirit to come into your body and your conscious mind goes away and they speak through you. And it's interesting because you actually feared
Yes.
learning that process.
Yeah, yeah, because the fear of losing control.
Yeah.
I don't like losing control. So that's, whether it's drugs, whatever it is, the moment I lose control, I'm like, nope. And so, like, with the channeling, I was like, yeah, or even like being hypnotized. Like, I've
Mm-hmm.
gone in to be hypnotized before when I was a smoker and I wanted to quit. And even that, like, I'm paying hundreds of dollars and I'm going in, and it's like, I knew I was mentally fighting it. And I was like, stop, because I really want this. But there was this survival that was like, no, you're not taking over. I need to have some sense of control. So that's
Mm-hmm.
always kind of been there. So the thought of like channeling and like, what? I've lost control? Like, no, that freaks me out.
Mm-hmm.
But, then when I learned that you can still be conscious, then, when you're, because we've done a channeling, we tried the channeling session, and
Yeah.
but then you go in there and you question yourself. You're like, but I remember everything that happened when I was channeling. Like, that must not be channeling then. What?
But we received the validation afterwards because we shared it with our client, and it was just
Bang
what it
on.
was. It was bang on.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like there is I don't know. But that's the challenge, I think, when you when you start developing your intuition, is trusting. That's the hardest thing. Like every student that we've ever worked with, even ourselves, this is a challenge. There are always times, and it's much louder in the beginning, where
Ooh,
you're like, how do you know what you're receiving is real? Because that
yeah.
is also something that will hold us back from developing our intuition further. We will get stuck in the energy of I don't trust what it is that I'm receiving. How do you trust? How do you know what you're receiving is real? And there's a few things that we share with our students when we're moving through that, but that's, I think, part of the beauty of how we hold space in our container is that we're in class with you while you're learning,
Mm.
and we're there to talk you through that, to
Yeah.
point out
Holding
the
your
things,
hands,
well, basically
basically.
holding your hand and guiding you through that challenge, that mindset, and showing you all the points as to like how you know that it was real, how you know that it was true. And then we move to the next one and the next one, the next one. And then eventually by the end of our 6 months, it's not as loud as it used to be, because it's always loud in the beginning. And it gets
Oh.
softer as you're validated more and you practice more. But
Well, and that's to me, like that's the only way I was able to trust that I was receiving and it was correct.
mhm,
Because, when you get validated, then you can like sit back and be like, okay, how did that come through? What did that
mhm,
feel like? And when you can reflect and be like, oh, okay, that came through that way. Interesting. Okay. And I always kind of like say to the students, like, you add these things to the toolbox. So
mhm.
being a very analytical mind person, like I've said that many times that I'm like, as much as I fully believe, I always, always, always have this little voice that goes like, I'm like, why are you questioning? You
Yeah.
freaking believe all of this, but I will always question everything. And, when I would have those moments that there was no way, like in my brain, I would sit there and I would just be like, could I have figured this? Nope, nope, nope. Okay, there's no way I would have known that.
Yeah.
This has to be true. I add those to my tool belt to be like, okay, when you're questioning yourself again, go back to that little toolbox or tool belt and be like, remember this, and this.
Mhm.
No, you are getting it right,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I also think, and what I've realized moving forward is not everybody can do this, but it is a practice, and there's like this, I guess it becomes like a mindset shift or a decision that you make, that like when you're practicing, for example, that you just share whatever it is that you are going to receive, because all you can do is share what you receive, even if it sounds crazy, even if it is just so weird and you're like, I don't even know how I got this or why it came into my brain. Like I got image, whatever it is, right? You got to share that, because you never know what it is that's going to hit for you to be validated for. But also like getting into that mindset of being like, I don't even care. Like, I'm just going to share what I received. I can't care. Like, I
I
have to
know.
just share it. But it's a decision that you have to make in your mind almost every time you go to practice. That you're just not going to care what it is that you receive. And I found that to be very impactful for
Mhm.
myself when I was developing, and just allowing myself to be vulnerable, and just, I don't like, even in the readings at the very beginning, before you and I even worked together, and I was doing like $11 Akashic Records readings and like $22 healings. And I was just like, I'm just going to share what I receive. And this is
Yeah.
all I can do. And then that was when I started to receive some powerful validation. But if I hadn't allowed myself to do that, I wouldn't be where I am today, because I'd still be in that spot. I'd still be stuck there being like, I can't share this because I'm too scared that it's going to be crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's the beautiful part of, our partnership and
Mm-hmm.
how that's been helpful with our students, because you and I we have very, not different experiences, but I guess different experiences. And I love it that, having both of us there, we can relate to
Both
each
sides.
type of person
Yeah.
and hold space for each type of person, because we can understand where they're coming from. And we have seen that with, the students. You will see that some people, you'll see in every cohort that we have,
Mm-hmm.
we'll have some people that just doubt themselves so much, and it's really, really hard for them to get out of doubting themselves. And then you have other people that are like, oh, I'm just going to share what I'm going to share. And not to say that those people don't ever are nervous or
Yeah.
don't doubt, but they're able to kind of like, get into that space to be able to like, I don't give a crap. And and I think that's where it's been so helpful, because like obviously I was the opposite, and I was the one that I've come a long way from
Mm-hmm.
when we first started learning, and it's been a journey. So in that sense, I'm able to help support
Mm-hmm.
those people who are really bogged down by this, and be like, I'm an example, I get it, like
Mm-hmm.
100% I get it. You can get past this, and this is what I had to do, or whatever. And I think that's like, I love that being part of our journeys, because we've noticed that where you and I can be very yin and yang in certain
Mm-hmm.
areas, and it is definitely divinely like that, because we're able to cover all areas, right?
Yeah.
As a teacher,
Yeah.
we are able to, if it was just one teacher and I'm like, I don't understand the person that's overly confident because I've only had this, I can only speak to my own experiences, and vice versa. So
Mm-hmm.
I do love that part of it, because yeah, we can kind of share that more holistic, well-rounded advice, or hold space
Yeah.
for people that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if somebody was practicing, so there's different ways that you can practice your intuition. Obviously, you can do it on your own, which I would say is harder to do if you're just quietly doing it on your own and it's just going to be longer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's going to be
And
hard.
it's quieter and it's not as obvious, and it's just you can still do it, but you're going to definitely have to work with spirit very intentionally, because they're going to have to be your partner in a sense for you to
Mhm.
practice this on your own. Your intuition is asking for signs and asking for validation and then waiting for validation. It's not going to be like, it's going to be slow, and that's okay if that's the way you want to do it. But for us, the way that we've experienced, like when somebody's wanting to practice their intuition and go deeper and allow it to become louder and more obvious, doing it in practice with other people is so impactful. And whether you're taking a course and you're doing that, or whether you have a group of friends and you're getting together regularly to practice, or you're doing it over Zoom with family, or whatever it is that you're doing, practicing with other people is so powerful, and so impactful, because that's where you're going to basically receive validation on the spot. Hopefully, if you're doing it not the right way, but in a certain way, the only way we know how to do it.
Well,
I'm sure
well,
there's other ways to do it.
totally. And the thing is, there's always going to be an aspect of being vulnerable and putting yourself
Mm-hmm.
out there. And so whether it is just with a family member, you have to, be open to being like, no, that doesn't resonate, and not having that like completely shut you down,
Yeah.
because there's going to be a lot of no's,
Mm-hmm.
as the channel, you as the filter, are trying to understand how it comes in for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a way, you want to invite those no's so that okay, well, how did I receive that? Okay, did this come through my filter? Did I add to this?
Mm-hmm.
Did I see this and go, oh, it must be this? But then no, it wasn't, it was this. And so that's why sharing it with somebody is so beneficial, because they're the only ones that are going to be able to fill in those empty spaces, those puzzle pieces that you just have filled in yourself,
Yeah.
that maybe you just can't know.
Yeah.
um and I also think, like, because I could hear somebody saying, well, I'm not as brave as Mandy, so I can't do this, right? Like, I'm not as brave, I'm not brave enough to do this. And that's where I kind of like sit there and be like, or like, maybe I'm not as brave as you two, to
Mm-hmm.
do this. I was not brave 100%. This was more like, even though it can sound like, oh, well, you're on a podcast and you're talking about this and you sound so confident, Allison, this has taken 3-4 years to get to this state. So if that is something that is holding you back, that you're like, well, I'm just not brave enough to do this, trust me, I was not either. And I went into it going, what the hell did I get myself into? But I was following this nudge that I couldn't understand,
Mm-hmm.
and spending way more money than I thought I could ever spend. It definitely was like, I can't believe I'm spending this much money on this. But I was feeling the nudge, and I
Mm-hmm.
knew I needed to do it. And I definitely showed up and was like, I'm not talking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking. I'm so scared. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not talking.
In our
And
practice circles, that's how
yeah,
you
in
showed up.
our practice circles, and if we had any time with the teacher, I
Mm-hmm.
was, there was like 25 people in the class. I had imposter syndrome. I naturally am somebody that doesn't like to speak in groups.
Mm-hmm.
Um, very, very shy of public speaking, all these things. Like, again, like, it might be like, what are you talking about? No, totally. It was like, I really was debilitating for me.
Mm-hmm.
And let alone being on Zoom. I remember being like, this is foreign to me. I don't even know. I don't like this at all. But through it, I started to slowly take a few chances. And there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely times, like, I remember the first time I spoke in a practice circle. And again, like, this is just with other students. There was no
Mm-hmm.
teacher in it. Everybody was learning, but I was so nervous. And I remember when I, in my head, was like, I think I'm going to say something. And my heart started going like, oh, like I remember I thought I was going to throw up. I was going
Yeah.
to pass out. And I was like, no, 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 no. You're going to say something. You're going to say something. And that's how debilitating it was for me. So for whoever's out there thinking like, well, I'm not as brave as you, trust me, I was not brave at all. And it took a lot for me to, put myself out there. And even afterwards, it took a lot. And this is where it's taken time to get
Mm-hmm.
to there. But I also think the developing of it and the moving through this created, I don't know, this
The
confidence.
growth, the
It
growth that
is.
you've experienced.
Yeah. And the healing that it's opened up
Mm-hmm.
for me, like going through this spiritual awakening, connecting to my intuition, understanding, going through this whole journey, I have become a much more confident person
Mm-hmm.
in myself. And I know I would not be who I am right now, talking over Zoom to, public speak or whatever. We've done some public speaking things that this is, I would have been like, are you shitting me? Like, no, not doing it. And not to say I wasn't nervous. Definitely I was like, cotton mouth, I can't handle this. But it's like this growth happened
Mm-hmm.
because I took that step,
Yeah.
because I went into it going, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm like, half the people in here are like superstars in my head. I was like, what? You have an Instagram all about this? And I'm like, what am I doing here? I don't have anything. And now look at us. Like, this
I
is where sometimes
know.
I look at it and I'm like, holy shit, Allison, you didn't even have nothing. You were just like this person that was like, Mandy's like, you should take this course. And I'm like, okay, I'll go spend thousands of dollars and join you.
But I also want to say, like, you didn't have to speak up in those practice circles.
Mm-mm,
And you
mm-mm,
didn't for
mm-mm.
the first little while, but then you chose to put yourself out there and do it because you were feeling a little bit more comfortable with the people in the group and stuff like that. And that's the thing
Yes.
with practice circles, when you're coming together in a group, you can still do the task, like the
Mm-hmm.
reading of the energy, and listen to what everybody else is receiving and then validate it quietly to yourself.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
you could take it a step further and share what it is that you receive, because you don't know, maybe what you share is going to validate for somebody else what they receive. Because there was a few times in those practice circles where it was like only two people got a certain thing and everybody else got something else. But
Oh,
had that one person not spoken up, the other person would have been like, oh shit, I suck. I didn't get anything. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And that was, yeah, like, and I think that was my very first time speaking up, which, what the fuck? Why did I do that? Because I was the
Obviously, H.
person, he does this to me all the time, right? Like, how
Well,
many
we wouldn't
times have
be
you done this?
here
No,
without H, because there was lots of times where it was like, Allie, you should take this course.
No,
Before you even thought about it, Allie, I really feel called to do this podcast. I'll do it with you. And you just didn't even think about it.
no,
And
didn't even
well,
bloody think
what
about
about
it.
teaching people how to do this? Do you want to do that together? Like before you even like could even think about it, you were just offering
I
it
was
and I was like
H.
taking it.
Absolutely. You were like, but it was like, I would totally afterwards be like, what did I just do? And
Yeah.
then it felt like it took over, but it was like, so probably in that practice circle, because I was the one that sat back and
Yeah.
I would validate myself silently by whatever everybody else was saying. But I also was like, if I didn't get the same thing, I was like, well, I suck. And then until obviously H took over and was like, you're sharing. And I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna puke and pass out, H. And then I shared, and it was the biggest validation for me ever because nobody got it.
Mhm.
That's where I sit there and I'm like, that Allison would not have shared that.
Yeah.
But it was 100% validated. And it was one of my tool belt things, my
Yeah.
toolbox that I put away because I was like, there was no way I would have known that. And
Mhm.
that to me was like, I took that major risk and it paid off. And I think that's what kind of really pushed me forward to keep going.
Yeah.
Because I was like, there's something here. There's
Yeah.
something.
As
Um,
well, as
yeah,
we were talking at the very beginning there, I was receiving some insight that I just want to share. So we
yeah.
were talking about like, doing practice is really impactful and stuff like that. But I think what I was receiving to share was like to know what it is that you're practicing is really important too. Because some people don't even know what it is that they're trying to practice and they'll sit there and just kind of open up their energy, which is beautiful. And there's a safe way to do that and an unsafe way to do that. But I think what was helpful for me when I stepped into that container was understanding what it was that I was practicing, because you can practice reading energy like what we do. You can practice reading the Akashic records, which is similar but different. You can
Mm-hmm.
practice healing energy or working with energy, which again is similar but different. But you can also practice mediumship, which is similar but different,
It is
and
different.
practice astrology again, which is similar but different. So there's certain avenues like we were talking about earlier. And so being really specific on what it is that you're practicing or what it is that you're wanting to develop, I think is really important to think about and to understand when you get to that point. Because it will help you organize the information that you're receiving, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and it's you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so many times we've had students come in that will say have developed something else, say have been doing, because again, so many different avenues, say
Yeah.
maybe they've been like going down astrology or they've been into mediumship and then they're like, ooh, I want to learn the Akashic records. So they've got some substance there, they got some understanding, they've been practicing, and then they come in and they're like, oh my God, like I've been doing this the whole time and I had no idea that this
Mm-hmm.
was this, or oh my God, that's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, kind of bringing awareness to certain things that you're like, holy shit, I didn't know that. And it's like, yeah, you don't know what you don't know. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and then when the moment it's brought to your awareness, it's like all this stuff starts to click
Yeah.
into place,
Yeah.
so interesting. We're like, I feel like, how are we going to keep going? We're like an hour in, man.
I
And
know.
we have like how many other points that we wanted to make?
Well, we may have to do part two. I don't know, maybe. I don't know. Let's talk a little bit quickly about well, we touched mostly on all of it. Like we
Yeah.
really want to talk about the fear of judgment. So I guess there's that one that we should touch on because again, like stepping into developing your intuition, there's so many fears that that can be tied to that, being the fear of being vulnerable, but the fear of being judged as well. And that was one that we both struggled with, especially as we started to share a little bit more on social media, because there's certain people in your life that that will just judge the shit out of you because they don't understand, right? And
Absolutely.
then that was definitely the case for both of us, where we're like, ooh, so and so saw my Instagram. Oh
Oh
no.
man, it was
You know how many
awful.
times Allie would send me a message and be like, somebody just started following us. And I'd be like, dun,
And
dun,
I
dun.
want to go into a hole. I just want to hide. I'm like, it's off. It is. But it even comes before that. Um, for me, it was, how do I say to my husband, who's a non-believer, that I want to spend a couple $1,000s to develop something that he doesn't believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, so that kind of like sense of judgment can happen right off the bat. If that's something, if you share, finances with anybody, and that they just, and then they're thinking, you're like, oh God, are they thinking like they need to send me to the loony bin? Like,
I
we've
didn't
been
even tell
married for,
Nick.
oh, see, well, that's the thing though. I'm like, but to me, like for our
Yeah,
finances, at that time, like a couple $1,000s was a big deal. And that was something
absolutely.
that we talked about. Like we had to talk about, we also had to find it. It wasn't just sitting in our bank account. And so like, I just remember being like, I know I want to do this, but I have no idea how I'm going to say, hey, can I take a couple $1,000s from our family income so that I could do this course? And we could use that on a whole bunch of other things, and that was so right there, that sense of judgment was kind of overpowering. I had to get through that to be like, not just spending the money, but I'm also spending the time.
Yeah.
And these nights I'm going to be busy, and
Mm-hmm.
it is. So you kind of like right out the gate having that feeling, and then it just grows, where obviously we decided to move and do a business out of this. So then
Yeah.
there's that like sense of being scared to be seen. But
Mm-hmm.
as you start to kind of go down the spiritual awakening, and as you start to develop and stuff, you can't help but even want to share it with people around
I
you,
know.
because you start to change fundamentally, and
Mm-hmm.
you start to view life through a different lens. So then it's like becomes harder to like stay in the closet, because you start to have these different perspectives, or you're
Mm-hmm.
excited and you want to share it. And it's that battle of like being authentic to who you are versus like, oh my God, fear of judgment. And I think a lot of us hold the fear of judgment. Nobody wants
Mm-hmm.
to be judged.
Nobody wants to be judged.
No. And there's some people that I envy, that have the don't give two fucks attitude about it. And I'm like, man, I envy that. Good for you when you truly don't. Like, it's one thing to say it, like, I don't give a shit. And then you're like, oh God, I'm going to go home and puke. And then it's like, but like, that's a tough one. And I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people who are feeling called to connect to their intuition and develop it, have witch wounds from past
Yes.
lives,
Mm-hmm.
and that contributes to it.
And then developing your intuition is actually healing that witch wound.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, because you're
Yeah.
stepping into your power, you're
Yeah.
reclaiming it.
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful. I know. It's a tough one. It's such a, but it's doable, right? You
Yeah.
slowly, baby steps. You and I did baby steps, probably baby or steps, because I need to go slow.
It's interesting because it's kind of like this dynamic that we have again, where it's like you slow me down from going too fast and I speed you up from going too slow.
See, the yin and the yang.
I
This is where
know.
you and I have seen this yin yang energy,
Yeah.
so many times. And I think we should do a podcast episode after we have our reading with Asha,
Yeah.
Rose, because we're going to have a couples reading. Okay, business couples reading.
To see how we trigger each other.
Well,
Just
it's trigger.
kidding.
Well, it's part of it.
It's part of it. We'll see what we're learning from each other,
Yeah, and
right?
our dynamics and stuff.
Yeah,
And we have a bit of an idea,
we do.
because like we have this like, oh, okay, it looks like Mandy goes first and clears the way, and then it's Allie's turn, and this has been like in developing, this has been in healing. So now that there's a pattern, I'm like, Mandy's like, oh shit, so that means when you get to the end of your healing, does that mean I'm gonna start? And then I'm like, oh God. I'm like, then I get to like have like a future, premonition. What premonition?
Premonition. Well, it's the
Is
same.
it
Now we're in
premonition?
this. Yeah, well, now we're in this cycle where,
Prediction, premonition. Yeah.
yeah, because like you're coming near almost to the end of some of your healing because it was really, and I'm like, fuck, like stay there, Allie. I'm not ready for my round yet.
She's sticking her foot out and trying to trip me.
Yeah. I'm
Stay
going to
down.
sabotage your healing.
Yeah, stay down, no more. And then I'm like sitting there going like, oh God, that's what I have to look forward to? Shoot.
Yeah, it's no fun.
No, we'll have to share that. We'll share
We
that.
will share. We will share.
Mm-hmm.
But you touched a little bit on the finances and stuff like that. And there is this fear tied to, I think, investing in intuitive development because it's so, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's just so out there that it's not something you would typically invest in. So people, you invest in a gym membership, for your health, you invest in, maybe you work with a nutritionist for your health, you invest in all these different things for your health or for yourself or for your self-care or whatever that is. So I think when people think about investing in a course to develop their intuition, remembering that it is self-care and it is, intuitive development is so much more than intuitive development. It is, it's healing, it's empowering, I don't know, there's so much depth to it.
100, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that I think that a lot of people get stuck thinking, well, I can't, that's too much. Like, what is that worth? Right. So I don't know, what is the worth of transformation to you? Do you know what I mean? And there's such a range out there from intuitive teachers. Like, there's such a range on how they value what they offer. There's some people who are really expensive and some people who are really inexpensive, and there's a whole range in between. But I think what it comes down to is, because we struggle with pricing. It's always so hard because we really want it to be accessible, but we also really want to leave the bank.
Well, we want it to be accessible, but we also want to honor ourselves and have the value in ourselves, where I feel like we can lean more towards devaluing ourselves versus honoring our worth. And so that's where we kind of like we find ourselves leaning towards, because there is a sense of service that we feel, this duty of service, of helping others. And we both feel that very strongly. And so that can sometimes come up and it can really kind of cloud, and it makes it uncomfortable for us to, put a price tag on it or realize our value. And understanding that, obviously there is, like, if we want to help more and more people, we need to be able to, have a living, like be able to, provide for ourselves and our family. But for us to be able to do that, we have to make enough that we can do that. And so in that sense, like, even though, like, man, if we could live in a world that there was no money, I would freaking love it. That would be my ideal. But unfortunately, we're not there yet. And so that's kind of been like our battle of being like, business women, but also being of service. That it's such a fine line to do that. And I think when you say like the value or like investing in your self-care, this is not the traditional forms of self-care. So it's going outside of the traditional forms that we as society find acceptable to add value to certain things. Like, there's certain things that you're like, okay, this is acceptable to spend your money here. This is being frivolous and silly because it's not part of, this kind of like standard norm type of thing. And so it's moving through those, I guess, those limiting beliefs or those programs that we kind of are just set in, and kind of like detaching from that. And that was completely what I went through, right?
Yeah.
Exactly that one thing, saying, if I said to him, I want to spend $3,000 US, I'm trying to see what would be appropriate. On furthering my education as a banker. Right. Because it's going to get me X, Y, Z. No question. Yes. You know what? I want you to develop yourself, move further. It's going to move your career forward, all of those things. Versus, hey, can I spend $3,000 US on developing my intuition? Okay, well, first off, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, you
don't need to know.
You don't need to know. And then it's
I don't even know. All I know is
I don't know either. And then it's like, okay, so what's that going to give you? I don't know. Because at that stage, I didn't plan on having a career in it.
Yeah.
Like literally, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like, so for myself, even if I didn't have to speak to anybody about it, actually, I probably would have just done it because I'm like that. I see something I want it, I do it. But
See something I want to do
what
it.
I do it. So, but that's like, right there, like
Mm-hmm.
it is really hard to justify in our head where to put money when you don't even know where it's going to lead you.
I know. And the other thing with the money just quickly is like, it is an energy itself. And so when you put money out, money will come back in. It is, you have to like, this is such a hard concept for people to understand, especially when you start understanding energy. It becomes more clear as you understand energy, but money is an energy itself as well. And it doesn't want necessarily, it wants to move, like it wants to grow, it wants to be like spent, like it wants to come in and go, come and go, come and go. There's this flow with energy, and we can get so stuck on and in fear of releasing our money for certain things, like, but then it can be so easy to release it for other things, like Amazon, for example. I have no problem, filling my cart full of Amazon items and pressing buy now, where then I was just like, holy shit, I just spent $250. I really could have used that towards groceries this year. Do you know what I mean? Or my bills. Like, I really hate paying bills, but I really love buying Amazon. Do you know what I mean?
What did I do to you yesterday? I was like, oh my God, Mandy, look at all these Oracle cards I just bought.
You did it to me.
I totally did it. And I'm looking up at my shelf and I've got like 30 Oracle card decks and I use about 5. So do I need more? No. But no. I was like, look at these pretty Oracle cards. And you're like, what? Where should I get what? And I was like, I signed up for a quarterly subscription from Hay House to get decks. And again, like, what? You don't need that, Allison. But it's like, but I got decks that haven't been released yet, Mandy. No, Mandy wasn't telling me I shouldn't do it. She then went add to
I
cart.
said, send me the link.
And you literally like,
too.
Yeah, add to cart before we even finished our
but
conversation.
I find value in this, right? Like I find value. We use our cards for our Monday card readings and to, connect to spirit in our own time and for family and whoever. We use our cards, but also I justified it because then I was like, ooh, if I get a deck that I already have, I can gift it to somebody.
Ooh, you know what we should have done? We should have done it through our business.
I know you were going to say that, but two subscription boxes. I want my own.
I want my own too.
Yeah.
But if we run it through the business, isn't it a write-off? No, I'm kidding.
Oh, that's
a Schitt's Creek thing where they're like, if you buy, it's a write-off because it's through the business. And
it's
like,
basically
where do you
free.
think you write it off?
You write it off the books. Let's ask our bookkeeper.
That's what happens. Well, I was thinking in my head, if there was one that we didn't want, then we would have it as like a giveaway for clients and stuff like that. However, I have to unwrap every single card deck because I need to know if I like it or not. So they wouldn't be.
Well, now we'll have 2, so we can unwrap one.
Oh yeah, they keep one. Okay, I'm moving the subscription to the business.
Okay, move mine too.
Carry on.
Okay, one more thing before we go. I know this is going to be a long episode, but it is the commitment. So something that people fear going into intuitive development, especially going into container or practice circles or something like that, could be the fear of commitment and the time. Because I know there is a time, like there is, what am I trying to say?
There is a time commitment. Absolutely.
There is a time commitment, and you are going to develop your skill stronger and faster in a sense if you commit and you practice regularly, because we will definitely have students that come in and just do the 1 week practice circles with us, which is totally fine, but we will see a difference between and some that don't come to practice circles very often. And then there's some that come to practice circles and practice between practice circles. And there's definitely a difference in the development pace for all 3 types of people, right?
Yeah. And I think, honoring yourself in what, where you can be, like where you can commit, what you can do. all you can do is honor yourself where you're at.
Absolutely.
But it's also then recognizing that when show up and maybe somebody's, getting more or they're receiving more and you're like, what the hell? Why am I not? It's remembering like, okay, oh yeah, wait a minute. I can only commit this much. So no, I'm not going to be the same as, John Doe over there. I got to be on my, and even if you were practicing the same amount of time and all of these things, we are all developing differently because we all have our own limiting beliefs that are anchored in, we all have our own things that we have, healings that we have to move through. And spirit on the other side also has their own, they know
they have an
what
agenda.
You need. Yeah, they have an agenda. They know exactly what needs to happen. So if they're like, no, you don't get to have your clairvoyance, that's the ability to see in your mind's eye. No, you're not going to have this clairvoyance turned on right away because, in past lives, that was the strongest thing. And you ended up using it for bad instead of good. So, you don't know this. You're sitting here going, why can't I see? This is so freaking annoying. And then, we go in and do a reading or something. And it was, oh, okay. Well, your jerk spirit guide over here has turned the switch off. You don't get to turn that on until you develop all the other things. So
we have seen that a couple times.
Actually, yeah, we have.
Yeah.
We have.
Yeah.
I know. I feel so bad. Yeah, you know what? I get it. H does it all the time to me.
He shuts you down.
Shuts me down, doesn't let me do certain things that other people get to do, doesn't let me do the easy button. So I'm like, I get it. It's annoying.
I feel when was pain. The last time you went into meditation for yourself?
You shut your mouth, Mandy. Oh no. Oh no.
Tell me. You don't even know.
I don't know. Oh no. Like I've done my energy bubbles, but when I've gone into meditation to ask questions or do healings, or no, it's been a long time.
Okay.
For myself. I'm in my head all the time. I'm working through shit so much all the time. So in a way, I'm like a walking meditation.
Allie's never fully present because she's half meditating.
Actually, that's kind of true. There's a lot of times where I'm just like somewhere else. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I can multitask. I'm really good at it. I can have I'm a singer and I have been singing on stage and literally having a conversation in my head. Like I will be like, la, 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 do my singing, not messing up. And I'm like in my head going, oh God, like, look at all those people. Like, what's happening here? Oh, do you have cotton mouth? What's happening? I'm having a conversation the whole time.
I feel like that's part of your gift. Like that was almost like splitting your energy. You know what I mean? Like where you're like sending your conscious awareness outside your body.
Oh my God. Oh my God. So in a way I've been doing it my whole life. But yes. I just thought that there was like, everybody did it.
Yeah, I can't do that.
True. That's so true. I didn't think of that. Love it.
You're gifted.
I'm so gifted.
All right. Well, we should wrap this up before we keep people way too long.
Holy Christ.
Hopefully you made it to the end.
Talking to you guys so much.
Okay. So we are very grateful for you coming back every week. Thank you so much. We would love for you to return and share us with your friends if you feel called to do that. Any of your little woo friends that are just kind of like dipping their toe and a little bit curious, that coworker that you've had that, do you know what I know? I don't know. Do you know what I know? That conversation.
Do you want to know what I know?
Do you want to know what I know? These people know. Listen to them.
You took it too far the other day with somebody. I remember you telling me that. This is what happens. Somebody opens a little crack and we start talking. And then all of a sudden we're like, boo! And then you just feel the wall go up and you're like, too far, too far, too far, too far. Back up, back up.
It happens once in a while. When I was explaining the bats, other people were overhearing me.
Oh, it wasn't even that. It was somebody, I think it was like somebody who showed a little bit of interest, like maybe a coworker or something. And then you were like, oh my God. And then you're like, oh, then I went too far. Because people like your perception, your reality, all those things, you kind of like are in a bubble, and then it expands a bit more, and then it expands. But if you go from like out inside the bubble and then you jump all the way outside the bubble 10 feet, somebody's like, now you've lost me. So maybe you lost a bunch of people with the bat story. But
maybe I did. I could, but I could have, but I don't feel
just,
that.
No, it's just your reality. Like,
Yeah.
no, it's not your it's it's Mandy's own little reality. Don't worry, guys. No, but it's where you are at,
yes,
in your development. But somebody that's not there yet, going to be like, what? Just like, before I was there and I heard about reptilians, I was like, okay. And now I'm all like, you're a reptilian and you're a reptilian. No.
you look like a reptilian.
Yeah. So, in wrapping this up, like we said, we are
for the second
teachers.
time.
Yeah, I know. We're teachers. And so we have 3 online courses. So self-paced that if you're like, I'm not ready to go into a container and talk to other people and look at them, then you can, look at our self-paced courses from, unlocking your intuition to meeting your spirit guide, or even just the very basics, Intuition 101. We love that. They're affordable. They're self-paced. And then, if you're kind of like, no, I want those circles, those practice circles, we are going to be starting our next cohort in July. We run this program twice a year. And so this will be the last one for 2024. So if you are interested, you have any questions or whatever, let us know. The prices are they all up on the website?
Yeah.
And then there's anything hidden.
There isn't, no, because I hate that.
I hate that too, because I don't
when you're
want
like, oh, I'm interested, but you have to click 5 different links to know the price. I just want to know upfront. Like, I'm not going to
have to ask them.
Yeah, we're not going to send you through a bunch of hoops to know what it is.
We're going to tell you what it is upfront. It's not 3,000 US. I'm just saying that because that's what I was saying.
It's 500 per month for the container, the 6-month container, 500 per month for 6 months, because Canadian, which is less than, like, I think if you're in the US, then I think it's like it's like 400 US or something. But either way, it's much less with the conversion rate, but you get so much, like you get so much with it. It's all on our website. But I have to say, anybody who's on the interest list will get a discount, like they'll get a different offer than what's on the website. So it'll be less than for those that are on the interest list. And if you're on the interest list and you choose to register, you won't be paying $500 Canadian per month. It'll be less. No.
And disclosure, that price, this program is as of today, and which is June 5th, 2024, and everything can change.
Subject to change.
Well, everything's always moving, right? That's energy. It's always moving. It's always changing. But that is as of today's date of what, and
for the July cohort of 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. So
you can find the interest list on our website, and we'll link it in all of our show notes.
And that course is called The Soul Activating Journey. Dong dong.
Because we're activating your soul gifts.
Boom. Drop it. Mic drop. Let's go.
Okay, we've kept you long enough. Thank you for being here. We love you. We're grateful.
Yes,
we will see you.
Okay. Bye. Love you. Bye.